What is going on, everybody? This is Treasure MC, and today we are going to be talking about horror movies. Big surprise there. Now, today we are going to be talking about what I think are some underrated ones. Movies that don't get talked about enough, or movies that people are like, hey, I've seen all the movies in this series, this one's one of the worst ones, or people say that it's fine, but it's nowhere near as good as some of the other ones. I am here to highlight some movies that I think people maybe should give another chance, or at least I don't know what it is. Maybe you're not a fan of it. Maybe you're like, yeah, it's fine, whatever it might be. These are just movies that I like and I think should get talked about a little bit more often than they do. So we're going to jump in with an honorable mention, and this movie, had a sequel not been announced, this movie absolutely would have been probably number one. But there is a sequel on the way, but still, I don't think enough people know about it. And that movie is called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Now, if you know this movie, then cool, I already like you. But yeah, if you're not familiar with this movie, essentially this is a mockumentary. Okay, it's the majority of the movie is actually kind of like this found footage thing, but in like a documentary type of thing, to where in this universe, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger all exist, and they're all infamous serial killers. And then you have this guy. He goes by the name of Leslie Vernon. He wants to be a serial killer just like them, and so you have this camera crew that actually follows him, and they're like, "Hey, what does it take to be a serial killer? What's your thought process behind that?" And you follow his story as he explains all of that. And eventually things come to a head to where they actually realize of, oh my goodness, that we totally just interviewed a guy who wants to kill people. And so they deal with that. But one thing, if that doesn't seal the deal for you, like if that doesn't sound interesting enough, look who's on here. Look who's in the cast. You got Robert Englund. And guess who Robert Englund plays? Robert Englund plays this guy's former psychiatrist who's on the hunt for him. So you essentially get Robert Englund playing Dr. Loomis from Halloween. And that is so cool. Like, hearing that was what sold me on this movie, and when I checked it out, I was like, oh, I like it for way more than just that. And so this movie is absolutely worth considering. Like I said, if you know about it, that's really cool. Definitely check out the sequel when it comes out. I know I will be. That's going to be really cool. But yeah, if you haven't checked this out, highly, highly recommend it. If you like slashers, specifically if you like the big three, I think this one would be kind of fun. Just do be aware that it's a found footage movie that kind of, it knows it's weird, it knows it's campy, but it takes itself seriously. Like it plays it seriously, which makes it funnier. So if that doesn't sound like your thing, that's totally fine. But I'm just saying, check it out if you haven't already. So now, jumping into the proper list, coming in at number 5, we have Terrifier. Terrifier 1, which is easily my favorite out of the Terrifier movies. And I find it interesting that people, like, I understand that this is a franchise that's not for everyone. Some people look at these movies and they're like, nope, absolutely not my thing. And to that I say, that's totally fine. You can just skip ahead to number 4, or when I stop talking about this one. Yeah, so the thing with Terrifier for me is that I saw these movies when I was kind of getting into horror, and then it wasn't too long after Terrifier 3 came out, and I saw people ranking the Terrifier movies, and they're like, well, the worst one out of the main 3 is the first one. The 2 and 3 are way better than that. And I was like, okay. So I saw Terrifier 1, and I was like, this is the worst one out of them. This is dope. I can't wait to see the other two. And yeah, and you might be wondering, why am I saying that? Well, I understand the criticisms that people have with this movie, where they say there's very little, if any, story. It takes place mainly in one location, and yeah, it's basically just a highlight of, look at this clown guy, isn't he messed up? And to me, it's like, that's all it really had to be. I personally thought that it was really cool with, like, the saying of less is more. I think that this movie is pretty good proof of that, to where you just have these two girls who get stalked by this weird guy who then ends up kidnapping them and brutalizing them. And this movie, it isn't really stated as much, but Art the Clown in this movie they really subvert a lot of expectations when it comes to the slasher subgenre, to where there's this one scene that happens to where you think it's going one way and then all of a sudden it's not. And so I think that this movie is the best one. And one of the main reasons why I say that is I saw Terrifier 2 and I was like, this is good, but it's a little long. Like, that movie's almost 2.5 hours long. And there are some scenes, personally for me, there are some scenes that I feel like go on for way too long where it's like, okay, we understand the setup. We understand this is happening. Can we just move on? And it just kind of lingers for a little too long. So Terrifier 2 is definitely my second favorite, but yeah. And then Terrifier 3, not really my thing. I think that that one was, I mean, it continued the story. I thought that the story was kind of cool, but for the most part is, nah, not for me. However, this first one, I will always go back to this first one, and to me, I feel like I said, less is more. I mean, I'm cool with the very little story of you have these two girls and this guy, and that's it. He kidnaps them, takes them to this abandoned warehouse or whatever that's supposed to be, and just messes with them, and that's it. That's enough for me. And so I thought it was cool, and yeah, the people that just kind of like push this movie aside of, oh, it's the first one, it's not that good compared to the other two, I would say check this one out again. I think it's kind of cool. So yeah, this one is my number 5 pick. All right, now coming in at number 4, we have a Friday the 13th movie. And which one am I talking about? I'm talking about the one that people say Jason isn't in. Part 5, New Beginning. And look, let's just get the cat out of the bag, okay? The people that say Jason isn't in this movie, he is in the movie. Okay? that is something that always annoys me, is the people that say that Jason isn't in part 5. Yes, he is. He's just not real. I understand that sounds weird. If you've seen the movie, you'd understand. But yeah, so New Beginning. People are quick to dismiss this movie simply because of the fact that Jason isn't the killer. He gets somebody else as the killer. And I will be honest, having the reveal at the end of the movie, the way that it is, of like, oh, it was this guy, and here's how he did, and here's why he did, and all of that, I thought that was really dumb. Okay, I have to be honest, I didn't care for that. And yeah, his overall design, like, you can tell they were trying to do something different, and this was part 5, and in part 4, that was meant to be the end of Jason. They took him out, and they're like, okay, that's it, no more Jason, we're gonna move on. Then this movie came out and they're like, see, we're going to move on. Jason isn't around anymore. And then people were like, no, bring Jason back. So then they did, made part 6. Yeah, so I think that this movie is, it gets a lot of flack because of that, but I would say take that element out of it, just because here's the thing, whether it's Jason behind the mask or not, the character functions very similarly. It's a silent guy wearing a hockey mask who takes people out, and yeah. And it sure was real enough for Tommy Jarvis to where Roy confronts him in the barn. He's like, Jason? So yeah, it's real enough for him. And yeah, and following that, we get a really interesting performance from the character of Tommy Jarvis. He's not played by Corey Feldman or Tom Matthews. He's played by John Shepard, I believe is his name. Could be wrong on that, but I think that's what his name is. But he was a really interesting, he gave a really interesting take on the character, to where he was kind of exploring like the mental, like the PTSD of what happened to him when he was a kid, when Jason went after his family and all of that in part 4. And so we get a really interesting thing where he's like in this halfway house, he's trying to recover, get a functioning life back together, and he has all of these friends that have their own issues and all of that. And you get other characters, like, is she on here? She's not on the cover art. You get a really fun mom character and her son and all of that. That's all really fun. And another thing that people criticize with this movie is the director of the film, because the director of the film was very well known for making other stuff. And so they made this and they were like, it's too much like that. And to that I say, it's a Friday the 13th movie, and also I don't think it's as egregious as people make it out to be. Like, some people think that basically every woman is topless like the entire movie, and that's not the case. There are some scenes to where, yeah, that's a bit gratuitous, but for the most part, I don't see it as too different from the other ones. Yeah. So you get a really fun thing, and the main thing with the director is that he really didn't care all too much what was going on with the story. So the actors did a lot of improv on their own, like the scene of the two greasers outside of the car and the one who's starting the car is like, like that, that was really fun. So it's a fun movie. Like you have to be prepared for, okay, if you want a Jason movie, technically this isn't a Jason movie. He is still in the movie, but he's not the focus. But regardless, you get really fun characters, fun performances, and a movie that is nowhere near as much of a black sheep as some people try to claim that it is. Like, is this movie different from the other ones? I guess, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Um, and so yeah, like I don't understand the people that say that A New Beginning is like easily like the worst Friday the 13th or one of the worst or whatever. I think it's fun, and if any of what I just said sounds interesting to you, check it out. If it's been a while since you've checked it out, I recommend maybe checking it out again. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you still won't. But regardless, I'm just pointing out movies that I think are underrated. So this is my number 4 pick. So now coming in at number 3. Oh, this will be interesting for conversation here. We have a Rob Zombie movie to talk about. And no, it's not his Halloween movies, and it's not his Firefly trilogy. It's not Lords of Salem either, or The Munsters, or any of that other stuff. You know what movie it is? 31. And I am mostly not a fan of Rob Zombie. Okay, don't really care too much for his music. For his movies, I really don't care for the Firefly trilogy at all. I think his take on the Munsters is really weird, given how I'm a fan of the original show. I think it's way off. And then his Lords of Salem. It's a movie that it's got some qualities that are really cool, but overall it's not my thing. So I just on a whim I looked up videos of people ranking the Rob Zombie movies because I knew that there was a movie called 31 that he made, but I didn't really know much about it, and I heard people talk about it, and it sounded interesting to me. I was like, oh, it's kind of like this group of people who get caught by this weird group, and they're like, hey, you have to survive this death trap while we send these psycho killers after you. And I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. And I checked it out, and I gotta say, I wasn't disappointed. I was expecting it to be like a really gritty, grimy, gross type thing, and honestly, I think by Rob Zombie standards, this one's pretty good. And you get some fun performances, like you get to see kind of all of these characters that the protagonists have to survive. Not all of them do, but you do get a really fun performance in particular from Richard Brake. He plays the main antagonist, so to speak. But you also get Malcolm McDowell, who plays this really over the top character, and Malcolm McDowell is always phenomenal. He's one of my favorite actors ever. So just him being in this movie was enough to get me to watch it. But yeah, so you get a really fun movie. Some fun gore. Now, one thing that I will say, if any of that sounds interesting, there is one disclaimer that I do have to make, and that is the shaky cam. Okay. Like Rob Zombie, from what I understand, he was insistent that all of the shots were done with physically hand holding the camera. And so there are some scenes to where the camera is kind of going like this. And I understand if people have seen that and they're like, this movie makes me sick because of the constant motion and all of that. If that's the case, I understand. Okay. And I am saying if you haven't checked out this movie, do be aware of that. Okay. You might have a problem with that. Me personally, I didn't mind it too much, but I am not you. Okay. So, yeah, but I would say that this movie's fun. It's got a fun little thing to it. It's like a really messed up version of like Hunger Games or Ready or Not or something like that. Like basically, you want a Rob Zombie version of Ready or Not? Check this out. If you don't want that, then forget about it. But like I said, these are just movies that I think are underrated and aren't appreciated enough, aren't talked about enough. But regardless, yeah, 31 is my number 3 pick. It's not my number 31 pick. I don't have 31 movies on this list. It is my number 3 pick. So now, coming at number 2, boy, Phantasm. Now you might be wondering, okay, I'm talking about all 5 Phantasm movies, and frankly, I could, because even if you're a horror fan and all of that, like, Phantasm is a thing that not everyone has seen, and I find that really interesting, but, yeah, so I could say, like, watch all of these, okay, but some people wouldn't want to do that. if you want more details on the Phantasm movies, you can check out my video where I rank all 5 of them, and you'll find out that I actually like all of them. But in particularly, there is one that I am going to say is not talked about enough, and that one is Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead. And the reason why I'm saying that Lord of the Dead is the one that's on this list. Like I said, really all of them could be on there, but I'm gonna go with Lord of the Dead in particular because I was introduced to this series by a popular YouTuber named Cody Leach. If you're watching this video, you might have heard of him. He's mainly known for doing movie reviews and especially horror movies. And he's a fan of the Phantasm movies. He's especially a fan of the first 2. And so I saw his video of him talking about the Phantasm movies and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. But he said that really the first 2 are really the only ones worth watching. If you want to check out the other ones, you can. And so I was like, okay. So I saw the first one and I was like, this is cool. I can't wait to see the next one. And I saw Phantasm 2 and I was like, that was really cool too. And I initially took his word for it. I was like, okay, so 3, 4, and 5 aren't that good. Okay, I'm just not going to bother with those. Well, then, out of nowhere, I found this video of someone talking about Phantasm 3 and just doing a general plot synopsis. And I was like, that sounds really interesting. That's kind of cool. So I found Phantasm 3, checked it out, and I was like, this is supposed to be bad? I don't think it's bad. I actually really liked it. And I thought it was really cool. And so you get a really cool final girl with Rocky. I like her so much I put her on my list of top 10 favorite final girls. But you also get this Kevin McAllister type character with Tim, and you get Reggie who's back, and it's very sad to hear that Reggie Bannister passed away. Very sad, but let's focus on the movies here. So yeah, so you get more of him. He's in the focus. Mike is kind of in the background, which I personally didn't mind. I thought it was kind of interesting of them going to rescue him. But yeah, so Phantasm 3 I think is really cool. So I would say if you haven't checked out any of these, I would recommend maybe just checking out the first 2. But if you happen to like Phantasm 2, then I would highly recommend that you check out Phantasm 3. Because I think Phantasm 3 is just as good as Phantasm 2. And if you've seen my ranking, you know that I have Phantasm 3 slightly above Phantasm 2. So, yeah, if you've seen the first 2, haven't checked out the other ones, I recommend that you check out Lord of the Dead. If you have seen all of these and you just don't really remember what happened in Phantasm 3, check it out again. And, yeah, like I said, if you haven't seen any of these, check them out. Boy. But, yeah, so there we go. That's my number 2 pick. Now, coming in at number 1, I did a whole video about this movie, talking about how it's nowhere near as terrible as people say it is. If you want my full thoughts on it, watch that video. But coming in at number 1 is Hellraiser Deader. And I will say this, I do not understand why so many people trash this movie. I did not get it. My first time watching all the Hellraiser movies, I heard about the agony that is watching all of the direct-to-video movies. And this was actually the first out of the direct-to-video movies that I saw. Because I was like, it sounds the most interesting. You get this journalist who's investigating this cult and these mysterious, like, deaths that are happening, but are they really happening and all that. I was like, that sounds interesting. So this was the first out of the direct-to-video movies that I saw. And I was like, why are people saying this movie sucks? I don't get it. And then I ended up seeing the other direct-to-video movies, and I was like, okay, some of these I completely understand why you would say that it's terrible. But this one, I will stand by. This one's really cool. And, yeah, like I said, if you want my full thoughts on it, watch my video on this. But, yeah, Hellraiser Deader, I think, gets nowhere near the amount of appreciation that I think it should. This movie is way better than people give it credit for. And so, you gotta check it out. If you haven't seen all the Hellraiser movies, it's been a while since you've seen this one, I encourage you. This movie is not terrible. Okay, this is very fun, very interesting, very unique direction, while still, I also maintain this, it still feels like a Hellraiser movie. Some people say it doesn't, I say it does. But regardless, Hellraiser Deader, my number 1, and there we go. So, there we go, 20-minute video, how about that? But Regardless, that's my list of underrated horror movies. Maybe you have a similar list. Maybe you have a completely different list. Regardless, I want to know what that list is. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you want to see more content like this, you can subscribe. I have plans for other video ideas regarding movies and stuff like that. But other than all of that, I do hope you enjoyed. I hope that I'll see you all later. Watch out, Razor Dadder!